Rapunzel. Once upon a time, in a faraway land, there lived a lovely couple. One day, the woman gave her husband the good news that she was pregnant. Her husband was so glad about the news that he said he would do anything for her. And one day, she told him that she was longing for some crunchy lettuce. If I can't eat some of that delicious lettuce from our neighbor's garden, I won't get any rest. So, her husband went into the neighbor's garden to fulfill his wife's wish. But the poor man did not know that his neighbor was a very dangerous witch named Camilla. No one knew, but the witch was 150 years old. To look young, Camilla could only touch golden things, so she covered everything in her house with gold. She covered the plates, spoons, and forks, bottles, lamps, even the chairs on which she sat. Everything was covered with gold. And that evening, there was a knock at the door. It was the neighbor who had come to ask for some lettuce for his pregnant wife. Camilla said that he could take as much as he wanted from the garden, but under one condition.
If your child has golden blonde hair, I'll take it.
The man didn't know what to do, but he foolishly agreed and prayed that his child would not have blonde hair. But a few days later, his wife gave birth to a beautiful baby girl with golden blonde hair. They called her Rapunzel. Camilla somehow knew the baby would be born with blonde hair, so she took the baby from her parents and brought her home. The witch took very good care of Rapunzel. She combed her blonde hair, which grew a little longer every day. Camilla never wanted her hair to be cut because she would take long strands of hair and cook it in a magical cauldron and turn it into gold.
My magic turns her long golden hairs into gold. I'm set for life.
Deep in the forest, Camilla used her magic to build a huge, tall tower where Rapunzel would be trapped and her hair would be safe. The tower didn't even have stairs inside. It was just one small room with one small window. Rapunzel grew up in this room alone for 18 years, except for Camilla's visits. When Camilla came to visit her from time to time, she called on her from below.
Rapunzel! 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 Let down your golden hair.
Rapunzel would let down her long braided hair down the window, and Camilla would hold on to it and climb up into the tower. Mother, why doesn't this tower have stairs? Why can't I step on the ground and play with flowers?
Ah, my beautiful golden-haired girl. This is the only way I can protect you from the evils of the world. There are many dangerous animals out there, and all kinds of mean creatures. If something were to happen to you, then I wouldn't survive.
One day, Rob, the handsome prince of the country, who was born on the same day as Rapunzel, took his horse for a ride in the forest. The prince heard the singing in the forest and thought, "La, la, 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 la."
This voice is such a beautiful voice.
Prince Rob listened carefully and followed the sound of the mysterious voice until he finally arrived at the bottom of the tower where Rapunzel lived. When she sang at the window of the tower, he immediately fell in love with her. He glanced around for a door to the tower, but could not find one. And just then, Camilla also arrived at the tower. So the prince hid behind the bushes because he knew of her reputation as a wicked, mean witch.
Oh no, that's Camilla, the evil witch. What is she doing here?
Rapunzel! 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 Let down your golden hair!
Rapunzel let her long hair down for Camilla to climb up. The next day, the prince returned to the tower. But when he arrived, he tried to imitate the witch's voice and called up to the tower.
Rapunzel! Rapunzel! Let down your golden hair! Ahem.
Rapunzel thought the voice sounded odd, but let her hair down anyway. Prince Rob quickly climbed up the hair, curious to find the voice that had sung so beautifully.
Oh, what a hairy climb.
Rapunzel was frightened when she saw him. Who are you? How did you get here?
I'm Prince Rob. I thought you might be in trouble because of the witch and all, and no stairs.
Oh no. I'm Rapunzel. I don't know you. My mother says strangers are dangerous creatures. Get out of here.
Don't worry, I'm not a dangerous person or creature. I simply heard your beautiful voice and wanted to see what the witch was up to. So I guess I'm here to rescue you.
The prince's words softened Rapunzel's heart, and she began not to be afraid of him anymore.
Miss Rapunzel, would you like to go down off the tower with me to smell the flowers, take a walk in the forest, and meet beautiful animals?
Rapunzel wanted to discover the life outside for years. So she accepted the prince's offer straight away. I've got an idea that can help both of us go down the tower. When the next day arrived, the evil witch Camilla arrived at the tower and was about to call for Rapunzel when she saw her long blonde hair hanging down from the top of the tower.
I guess she saw me coming and let her hair down already.
Camilla started to climb up to the top of the tower, and then she heard sounds of a horse. She thought someone might be nearby, but she didn't bother any further and climbed on because she wanted to reach Rapunzel as soon as possible. When she arrived in Rapunzel's room, she was shocked. Rapunzel wasn't there anymore. She had cut her hair off and run away from the tower.
My gold! My gold is gone! No! Rapunzel!
Rapunzel had cut her hair and tied it to an iron on the wall of the tower, so she and the prince could climb down together. Camilla, alone in the tower, desperately touched Rapunzel's cut hair.
No, 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 no! It doesn't work anymore because the hair is cut off. The hair must have roots to turn into gold.
In the meantime, Prince Rob and Rapunzel arrived at the prince's castle, and the prince told everything to his father and mother, the king and queen. The king said that he had heard the name Rapunzel from an old farmer and his wife. So the prince immediately took Rapunzel to the old house of the couple who had said they had lost a baby named Rapunzel. As soon as her poor mother and father opened the door and saw Rapunzel, they recognized her. "My daughter! My dear daughter, you found us! The evil witch took you away from us."
It has been so many years, but you're finally home. We are your real family.
Rapunzel was very happy to meet her real family. And what do you suppose happened to Camilla, who was left in the tower with no gold?
I'll find you, Rapunzel. I will hunt you for the hair that turns into gold.
One day, the vain, evil-hearted Queen Hela called her chamberlain Dunkov. "Unveil my magic mirror, Dunkov." Chamberlain Dunkov was clumsy and pulled the cover down onto himself. "You fool! Get out right now!" The queen admired herself in the mirror and then said, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" The magic mirror answered her,
In this land, my queen, you are no longer fairest in the land. Snow White is the most beautiful.
Hela became very angry.
It can't be. No one can be more beautiful than me.
The whole castle seemed to shake with her anger, and her evil heart wanted to destroy the beauty of Snow White. She made a plan and ordered the royal huntsman to take Snow White into the enchanted woods and kill her, and bring me back her heart. Snow White trusted the royal huntsman and went with him into the woods. Along the way, she saw a wounded bird on the ground. And Snow White picked up the bird to help heal its wing. Behind her, the royal huntsman sneaked up on her and took out his bow to shoot Snow White. He drew back the bow and took aim, but he could see that the girl had a kind heart as she held the wounded bird, and he decided it was wrong to kill Snow White.
Snow White, she ordered me to take your life. I can't kill a person as good and kind as you.
Who wants to take my life?
It's Queen Hela. You must run away and hide.
The huntsman chose to trick the queen and killed a wild boar instead, so he could take the boar's heart to the queen and make Hela think that the princess was dead. The princess was terrified and ran through the dark woods. She struggled through sharp branches and bats in the night until she could run no further. She collapsed against a tree and fell asleep in the cold, dark, enchanted forest. When the huntsman reached the castle, he marched directly to the queen.
I have fulfilled your command.
Queen Hela took the box and examined the heart. She believed that Snow White was dead, and her evil laughter echoed through the castle. When the sun finally rose, Snow White woke up in the heart of the forest, and there before her was the cutest little house with a small garden gate and picket fence. tiny windows with a doorbell and a round green door. She rang the bell, but no one answered. And when she reached for the door to knock, it opened. Inside, everything was so small that it felt like she was in a toy house. Tiny pots, tiny spoons, glasses. When she found a tiny bowl of soup, she was so hungry that she ate it. And then fell asleep on a tiny bed. Not far away, the owners of the house finished their work in the mines and went home. As soon as they entered, they knew something was wrong. So they walked quietly and whispered,
Shh. Someone has eaten my bread.
Someone has used my plate.
Someone is sleeping in my bed right now. Such a beautiful girl.
Ah! Hey! Goat! Get the lamp!
Catch! Hey! Wow! Get the lamp! Catch! Yikes! Phew!
What? Shh! She's awakened. She's hiding under the blanket.
Don't be afraid of us, little girl. We are the 7 dwarves. I am Ace.
And these are jolly, angry,
Curious, silly, shy, and lazy.
Well, I am Snow White. I'm sorry I wandered into your house.
Snow White told them everything that had happened to her, and the dwarves were very sad to hear her tale. So they said she could stay with them in their little house. Far away, in another land, there was a young, handsome prince. His name was Antoine. He loved sitting outside at night and looking at the stars, which reminded him of the people he loved. One night, he saw the face of Snow White in the starry sky and felt he should seek her out. A fairy told him she was in danger and gave him a magical heart necklace. So Prince Antoine got his trusty horse and rode away to find the beautiful face in the sky. Back in the castle, the evil-hearted Hela was again in front of her magic mirror.
Dunkov, uncover the magic mirror.
Let me see my beauty. Dunkov entered, but the cover got caught on the mirror, and he almost knocked it over. Dunkov is such a clumsy assistant. Always at the most critical times, he becomes awkward and clumsy. The queen was continually annoyed with him. When Dunkov had left, Queen Hela again asked the mirror to tell her how beautiful she was.
Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?
Sorry, my queen, but Snow White, who lives with the 7 dwarves, is the fairest in the land.
No! I thought Snow White was dead.
The queen stayed up all night, making evil plans to kill Snow White once and for all. She decided the best way to disguise herself, so she changed into a cute little bunny. In the morning, the dwarves went off to work. One by one, they kissed Snow White on the cheek and walked to the mine, and they warned her to be careful while in the house alone.
Now, princess, don't open the door to strangers. It isn't safe.
The forest seemed peaceful, and Snow White began to water the flowers in the garden. The princess noticed a little bunny sitting in the garden who seemed hurt. She went over and picked it up and brought it inside the house. She bandaged the rabbit's hurt leg and let it rest in the sun on the dwarf's bed. The bunny seemed like it was sleeping, but as soon as the princess left the room, the rabbit opened its eyes and looked around. Then it jumped, and turned back into the evil Queen Hela. This was exactly what she had planned. She poured purple poison into the pillow, thinking that the princess would sleep there and die from the poison. Snow White was so tired from working in the garden that she went inside to rest. She was just about to put her head down on the poisoned pillow
Snow White! Snow White!
when she heard the dwarves come home. The princess met them at the door, and after a delicious dinner, they danced all night long. Snow White fell asleep in front of the fireplace, and it's a good thing that she did, because then she wouldn't be sleeping on the poisonous pillow. When the queen returned to her castle, Dunkop was still asleep, guarding her door. Thinking her plan had succeeded, she went to the magic mirror.
Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?
My queen, Snow White, who lives with the 7 dwarves, is more beautiful than you.
Grr! No! I should be the most beautiful in all the land. Me! I will make a plan that will kill Snow White.
A few days later, while the dwarves worked in the mine, Snow White was sewing some of the dwarves' worn clothing. And then she heard a knock on the door. The door was knocked 3 times. Snow White looked through the door to see who it was. And it was an old, ugly woman with a basket of apples.
Who are you? I'm a saleswoman. I have very delicious apples. Would you like to try one?
Snow White was afraid to open the door at first, but she loved red apples.
Here you go. Enjoy it, my beautiful child. A free sample.
Snow White took the apple given by the old woman and took a bite. The apple had been poisoned. She fell to the ground before she could even cry out for help. Just down the road, Prince Antoine rested his horse in the shade of a tree. He had traveled far to find the beautiful face he had seen in the sky. Just off the road, he saw an old woman walking along. He was about to go speak with her when suddenly she transformed into the evil Queen Hela. The prince and his horse were stunned, and he decided to not go ask her for directions. Later that night, when the dwarves came home, they saw Snow White, still and lifeless, on the floor. They were so sad, and their hearts were broken into 1,000 pieces. They crafted a beautiful glass coffin and carried her to the country's longest river so that all the people of the kingdom would know of her beauty. Just downstream, the prince was traveling on his horse on the riverbank, and he noticed the glass coffin in the boat. He recognized the face of the girl immediately. The prince was very sad. But he opened the cover of the coffin. He took the stardust necklace from his pocket and put it on the princess.
Goodbye, my princess. Shine like a star wherever you are.
But just then, the prince saw Snow White move. The stardust necklace was magical and rewarded him for his diligent search of the face he saw in the sky. Snow White revived. When she awoke, she was amazed to have such a handsome prince standing beside her, rescuing her. When they eventually got to shore and returned to Snow White's castle, she and Prince Antoine told the king everything. When the king learned what Queen Hela did to Snow White, he banished her from the kingdom. The king locked the magic mirror and all of the queen's possessions into the dungeon of the castle. Many months later, Snow White and the prince fell in love, because this was not an arranged marriage, and had a beautiful wedding in the castle. They invited the dwarves and celebrated and lived happily ever after.
Once upon a time, there lived a brother and sister named Hansel and Gretel. Their mother had passed away when they were babies. They lived with their dad in a hut in the forest. Their dad was trying to earn their living by working as a woodcutter and was looking after the kids at the same time. A couple of years passed, and struggling to juggle work and 2 kids at the same time, their dad decided to get married again. The woodcutter's wife was from a wealthy family, and she hated the fact that they were poor and she had to live in a small ruined hut deep into the forest. Plus, she did not like her stepchildren at all. On a cold winter night, as they were getting ready for bed, Hansel and Gretel heard their stepmother talking to their dad. "How are you going to get through this winter? We don't have enough food. If you do not get rid of these kids, we will all starve to death." Their dad opposed furiously. "No need to argue. I made up my mind. Tomorrow we'll take them to the woods and leave them there." Hearing all that, Gretel started to cry. Her brother Hansel comforted her.
"Please don't worry, Gretel. Somehow we'll find our way back home."
Later that night, Hansel snuck out and collected as many pebbles as he could in his pockets. In the morning, they all started to walk towards the forest. Their father told them that they were going for a family hike. As they were walking, without anyone noticing, Hansel dropped the pebbles to mark the way back. In the afternoon, their dad and stepmother lit a fire and told them that they will be back soon. They walked off and vanished in the woods. Of course, they did not come back. When the night fell, the horrible sounds of all the wild animals in the forest started to echo around them. Shivering with the horrifying sounds of the wolves, Hansel and Gretel did not leave the fireside until the moonrise. Then they started to follow the pebbles shining in the moonlight and walk towards home.
Well done, Hansel. This was very clever of you.
When the kids came back home, their dad was very happy and surprised at the same time. Their stepmother also acted as if she was happy, but deep inside, her decision was still the same. She was very upset that they were back. After 3 days, the stepmother tried to get rid of them again. This time at night, she locked Hansel and Gretel's door and did not allow Hansel to collect pebbles again. But Hansel was a clever boy. When they were walking to the forest in the morning, this time he dropped the breadcrumbs that he had put in his pocket the night before and again made a trail the way back home. Around noon, their father and stepmother made up an excuse and went off, leaving them all alone in the forest again. Realizing that they were not coming back, Hansel and Gretel wanted to start walking back home before it got dark. But this time, they could not find the trail they left because all the breadcrumbs were eaten by the birds. Gretel started crying. For the first time, Hansel also felt hopeless. This time the kids were really lost. With no food and scared to death, they wandered around the forest for 3 days. On the third day, they saw a bird, white as snow. The bird chirped songs with its beautiful voice for them. They forgot their hunger for a moment and started to follow the bird. The bird brought them in front of a funny-looking house. This house had walls of bread, a roof made out of cake, and windows of candy, and was covered with colourful cream all around. Hansel and Gretel could not believe their eyes. The house looked incredibly delicious. The kids forgot all about how tired they were and started to run to the house. Just as they were both going to have a bite from the house, they heard a voice from inside.
Oh! Now who is nibbling on my house?
They looked around and they saw a cute and sweet old lady at the door. When they told her all about what had happened to them, she felt very bad for them, and so she let them in. The inside of the house was very different from the outside. It was dark, scary, and it didn't feel right. But because they were so tired and hungry, the kids did not care much. The old lady brought all kinds of food and desserts for them, and the kids ate food that they hadn't had before. That night, they slept on the softest bed they had ever seen. When they woke up in the morning, the old lady wasn't there. They started to look around. At the end of the corridor, they saw a small door. When they opened the door, they found cases full of gold and treasure inside. They were very surprised, of course. Hansel wanted to get in and take a closer look. Right at that moment, they heard her voice again.
And what do you think you are doing?
When they turned around, the kids faced the witch standing right there in front of them. Apparently, the old lady was a witch leading the kids to a dungeon with a house covered with cake and candy. The kids tried to run away, but the door was locked. The witch pulled Hansel by the hair and locked him in a cage. Then she dragged Gretel to the kitchen.
Your brother is too skinny. Cook some food for him and make him fat. When he's in good shape, he'll be a delicious meal for me. But don't you dare eat anything. All the food is only for him.
Having no choice, Gretel did what she asked for. Fortunately, Hansel was a clever and wise boy. He decided to trick the evil-hearted witch. Every night, when the witch was asleep, he was digging a hole in the ground of the cage. The witch was controlling Hansel every morning to see if he gained weight or not. But Hansel wasn't eating anything his sister cooked. Instead, he was burying them in the hole that he digged. In the meantime, the witch was telling Gretel to cook more. This went on for days until finally the witch had enough.
Fat skinny? I don't care anymore. Today I will make Hansel pie.
She turned to Gretel.
Look in the oven to see if the dough is baked enough.
Although she was in fear, Gretel was also a wise girl just like her brother. She understood that the witch was going to push her in the oven.
I can't get my head in there and see the dough,
whined Gretel. The witch pushed her aside and stuck her head inside. Gretel gathered all her strength and pushed the old witch into the oven and closed the oven door. Gretel knew where the witch was hiding the keys. She ran straight away and saved Hansel from the cage. The flames from the oven covered the whole house. Hansel and Gretel ran away from the burning house into the woods, but they did not know where to go. A while later, they came across a river. A giant swan took them one by one to the other side of the river. The kids looked around and suddenly they realized where they were. They ran home as fast as they could. Seeing his kids, Father was full of joy. With tears of joy, he explained to them how their stepmother had gone back to her parents' house soon after they had left them in the forest, and how sorry he was for all that he did, and no matter how hard he had searched for them, they were nowhere to be found. The kids loved their father very much, so they forgave him. But another surprise was waiting for their father. They both reached their pockets and brought out gold and diamonds they had found in the witch's home. Their father could not believe his eyes. All the problems that their family had ever had went away, and they lived happily ever after.